This is the Realty Classroom Podcast, episode number 60. Your perspective is too small. Are you a real estate agent with an entrepreneurial spirit who wants to turn your job into a business without sacrificing your lifestyle, but you just can't seem to find the right plan to help you get there? Well, then, hey, you're definitely in the right place because I'm you. By the way, I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Realty Classroom and the host of this podcast. And to help you take immediate action to build a better real estate agent business, I've created a free jumpstart course for you over at freeagentgift.com. Yes, get over there, please. We talked about it in the last episode. I'm going to hit it again in this episode. You need a plan. But today we're going to talk about why your perspective, even when you get that plan from me over at freeagentgift.com, is too small. Okay, so that's a subject here today. Why is your perspective too small? So the first point here, I have to harken back to a time when I was at a conference for Infusionsoft, which is a CRM that I use, and the guest speaker was the one and only Michael Gerber. And again, many times we talk about it, especially in the last episode about planning, is that we all believe as independent business opportunists, as real estate agents, that we're just going to walk out there and we're going to make this thing happen and we're going to go sell some houses. And when I was talking to Michael, one major lesson came through that I'll never forget. And that is, he taught me that we don't know what we don't know. I know it sounds like one of those little quips that anybody could make, but coming from him, somebody who had spent his entire life pursuing this understanding of what's the problem with small businesses, why do so many of them fail? And again, we've talked about this before where Michael says, look, the average independent business opportunist or small business owner has this conniption one day. It's like this entrepreneurial seizure where they decide that just because they know how to bake pies, in his book is the example, that they know how the pie business works, and that's not true. We really don't know what we don't know. And what we don't know mostly as small businesses is how does the business really work? And so therefore you have to go seeking and searching for plans. And that's why I make a big deal of giving away that framework for what to do when you're planning, because there really is no 101 business plan out there. And I say this all the time, go try to Google it. It just doesn't exist. Number one, if something does exist, I'd question it to begin with because it is so darn difficult to put together a small business plan. You really have to kind of fall into how do certain things already work in the business. So we certainly know some things about the business, but the one thing that we learned from Gerber that I want to come back to is you should now know that there is this requirement for this tripolar behavior, meaning if you are that entrepreneurially spirited agent who wants to run this as a true business, not just this little part-time gig where you can do a couple sales and put some money in the bank because your friends are going to buy properties or sell properties 2 or 3 times a year. It's more so for those that want to take a breath and think about, well, who do I have to become to turn this into really a business? Even if it is part-time, still see it as a business. And that's the difference between a vision that comes from the entrepreneur, a vision that comes from the technician, and we run to those two, but we always miss the one in the middle, and that's the second point here. You have to gain a manager's perspective. Right? What does that mean? It means that once you begin to know certain things, for example, let's just say you start to talk about marketing and you say, well, I want to know how to market myself. I hear that from a lot of agents, especially agents that are beginning to do well. And they even put the pressure on the brokerage. What are you going to do to market me? There's a lot of things you can do to market you, but it'd be like talking, about finding a fly speck in the ocean if there's no strategy to it. So in other words, the technician says, well, that's great. My brokerage gave me a postcard and they sent it out and it had my picture and my number on it. And then only to scratch their heads when nobody calls, right? And that's because if you're pressuring yourself or an agency to help you out with marketing, for example, and you have a technician's perspective and that tail wags the dog, meaning the broker just bends and says, sure, we'll send out a card for you. And they do. And it's sort of a one-off opportunity. Well, that's a lot of technical or tactical stuff. And I always ask people, well, what did you expect to happen? And see, there's where they really can't answer it other than that technical perspective. They say, well, I thought the phone would ring. I thought somebody would pick up the phone and call me. Well, why? Did you ever really get into looking at it from a managed perspective? And what that means is, number one, If your goal in marketing is to be more strategic as a manager and you do a little bit of homework, and I referenced it in the last podcast, go check that out, where you have this marketplace. So where in that marketplace geographically do you want to do business, and with whom? Those are pretty simple questions. Because now all of a sudden you're asking yourself, well, where did I just send that postcard? And did I send it to the right place? Did I send it to the right people? Do they have the right demographics? See what I mean? All of a sudden the management perspective comes in and it overrides this reactionary, transactional, tactical mindset that the technician has. So which decision-making process sounds better to you? I mean, that's a rhetorical question. I hope you're saying, geez, the managed one does make sense. So it's not like you have to have this big plan. And I know you just wanted to get the card out there, but at least take that manager's perspective of that decision so it's better. So let me break that down, because I did it with my brother. I said, okay, number one, where you should be focused is in this area of Boston where you live. Because you're walking up and down this small little part of Boston day after day with your kids and your wife, and you're there and people know you. And by the way, you have red hair and you stand out. You're a good brand, right? So there he is. So I said, that's number one, where? It's a relatively small spot. So when we went to look at the Postcard Company, we as a manager's perspective, we asked ourselves, which I asked myself a long time ago, which company would allow me to not only draw a geographic map to hit the doors that he would really want to do business within, or that area? Is that a way to really start to cull down the demographics in this section of Boston? Yes. Absolutely it is. And whatever other financial parameters, I mean, in other words, if he wants to do the high end, how do I identify by those streets, by those areas? Can we do more? So the manager keeps digging in deeper to say, we want to get this marketplace defined, and then we want to deliver a message to that marketplace. That's the second part of the manager's plan, right? So now you say, well, what message? Well, I want to get sellers. Well, great. What are you going to say to them? And the manager says, well, what do they want? Well, they want to know what their home is worth if they're thinking about selling, especially inside the next 12 months, which really is a great place to prospect if you can identify those people. So ask them the question on the postcard that they're probably thinking about. And that's called entering the conversation that's already going on in somebody's mind. What's your home really worth in 2019? So you see, that's provocative. And so the manager says, good. So now we know where they are, a little bit about their demographics, and the headline of the message is going to provoke that conversation that we believe is already going on in a potential seller's mind. So we're going to agitate it. Now you can go a little further with a subline, the manager says, and you say, well, what do you mean? Find out what online guesstimates don't include. Huh? You mean all those algorithms online? They don't give me what I want? Who's this guy saying this on this postcard? Short video explains the 4 keys to a true and thorough evaluation. Go here or call me. Boom! You're done. But what a difference in just a short couple of minutes here in this podcast, where that manager's perspective, making that decision about something like a postcard, goes right back to strategic thinking. Where are they? Who are they? What is the message I can deliver to them at that moment that helps them get what they want? And then they see me as a place to potentially get it. So they get up off that postcard and either call me or visit a short video. And when they get to the page with a short video, is it clear how they can opt in or call me there as well? So at least with that management perspective, now all of a sudden we've begun to eliminate ourselves as the potential problem, as somebody who just thinks tactically and really didn't think from a managed standpoint, will this work? Right? And see, that's the next point here, is that every time there's a decision or a desire to do something to grow your business and move it forward, the manager refers to the plan. Now, we talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again here in modules. In my mind's eye, at the Realty Classroom, very early on, I made a simple infographic for my coaching clients so that they could see Gerber's model come to life on one page. And at the top, it just basically said entrepreneur, strategic business vision, right? And also strategic personal vision, who that CEO becomes. So it's a very much of a visionary stage up the top that that's what Gerber says. You have the conniption that you want to go be an IBO, independent business owner, and you go into real estate to do it. That's that vision. I'm going to do this for myself. Now that can be strategic by saying, but I better have an overall plan with all three personalities mixed. So the next thing you would go to is not the tactical work. You would go to the management and say, well, how does this business work from a manager's perspective? And I've got to refer to a plan here, at least that makes me think managerially while I'm developing that part of my brain. So number one, if you're going to manage something to bring in business to this independent business opportunity, you have to think about strategic marketing. So that's the first module. And I give you some hard examples of how we did that in the first case. The next is once that works, because it will, you're going to get people who are interested in further interaction with you. And that's when they go into the conversion module. And go back and listen to the last podcast. I talked about the disposition in the conversion module, where that prospect goes from lead, you don't know much about their timing and their interest level, to prospect, where you do and they're willing to continue the conversation with you, to client, where now you're in it with them and you're trying to bring this thing to a fruition. So here we have these two simple modules that are the 1-2, and the manager can always refer back to it. So as you're managing that business, you're seeing these, two major league modules that say market, message, media. I'm making those choices, lead, prospect, client. And now I have something to work from. Think about that as the universal bone structure of most small businesses, let alone real estate agency. And then further down the line, okay, once I get through there, I can't just dismiss them. I have to put them into a strategic closing module, which is enormous amounts of detail, but more of like a checklist of things to do and how to coach that person, because this is where they freak out the most. So am I managing that person through the closing module so that I can birth them into the final module, which is the past client community module, where now I've built these happy griffins, as I like to call them, in my business. And now I have to stay in front of them and continue to educate them as the financial advisor in real estate, all the while making it clear that if they want to refer me, here's how you do that. And if you want to repeat buying or selling, here's how you start all over again. So you see, the manager's perspective, now we know what we're supposed to know from Gerber. You're supposed to have a management layer in between the entrepreneur and the technical work. So you develop this management perspective and you refer to that simple plan. And there it is. Those are the modules. Write them down. Marketing module goes into conversion module, goes into closing module, goes into past client community. And for all you team leaders out there or company starters that are really getting agents, of course, the expansion module is all about recruiting, teaching and training and retaining. So there's one more there that really grows this and expands this. But that's what you refer to when you make decisions. So, for example, for all of you that are thinking about hiring people, now you look at it from a management perspective. You go all the way back to marketing. Who's the avatar and where do they live, right? You see how easy this becomes when this management perspective calms you down and you say, look, I have to find out where my ideal agent lives. How old are they? Are they thinking about doing this part-time? Are they thinking about doing it full-time? And you have to ask those questions so that when then you go to the message, you can make the right offer to them. What do they want in that moment in time? So for me, I love brand new agents who aren't biased by all the nonsense in this business, where I can offer them the free course, this very same one that I share with you. I can start them off correctly with this sort of thinking. And that message resonates with those folks. So, and then I just have to decide what medium. So in this case, the medium is, for me right now, ZipRecruiter. Maybe Indeed.com is a backup, but ZipRecruiter.com is a fantastic site where I can go and have these conversations. And I did that after trial and error with Facebook and LinkedIn, and I tried a lot, and ZipRecruiter was the one that gave me the most consistent result. So I tested the media for the delivery of the message free plan after deciding that my avatar was most likely, at least for now, somebody that was newer to the business. So that's how I do it. I refer to my plan. And lastly here, I just started to reference it. The last point here is that the manager in you begins to make adjustments based on real feedback. So if I make an intuitive assumption as a manager, for example, let's stick with expansion for a second. If my intuition tells me, okay, I'm pretty clear that I'm not going to sit here and compete with all this nonsense that these brokerages are, it's a race to the bottom almost. How much commission can we give away and what can we overpromise and underdeliver? And I'm not saying that as a snarky comment. It's just a fact of the matter. There's too much of a race to the bottom from brokerages who just throw away commission, caps, this thing, that thing, only to leave the agent sitting there talking to themselves in the dark with no plan. It bothers me. Okay. So don't do that. Whatever your model is, make sure you're really sincerely there for these agents. But now let's coming back to this adjustment. I told you what I did. I looked at where they were, who they were. I thought about the message, and then I arrive at all these media choices as a manager. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much here. I could go broke trying this platform and that. So I dabbled in each one of them to see if the message would hit, if the audience was there. Because there's a lot of these sites, like Facebook allows you to get demographics, and Google via YouTube, or just search. There's a lot of choices, but I looked at it and said, well, newbies are tending to be more looking for that job on these platforms where jobs are being offered. So after some testing, we found that ZipRecruiter was the best media upon which to deliver the message to the right avatar. And it works. So now we just make further adjustments on what it is, and we put them into what? Conversion. Here we go again. So we deliver the goods to them, and we continue to follow up and service them. Even the ones that didn't choose to go with us, we continue to help them because we know there's a high likelihood that they're going somewhere where there might not be a plan. I want to be the second choice, and someday their first choice, because I was the one that continued to do that. So that's conversion, right? So I know there's no closing module per se, like a buyer or seller, but you get the point, is that these things are working similarly, but they're all made from the same manager's perspective. And I make adjustments on the media and the message. Sometimes the message falls flat. You have to go back and see, why didn't it resonate? Try something else. And that's what the testing is all about. And managers love to test and adjust. Okay. So let me go back and summarize these key points. Now, again, I recommend you go back and listen to the last podcast, episode number 59, where I talked about the importance of following and executing plans. But in this case, I'm going a little bit deeper, and I'm saying your perspective currently is most likely too small, meaning you're seeing everything through the eyes of this technician who just thinks, well, this open house and that postcard, and that's very tactical and transactionally oriented. It's just not good planning. You need all that stuff. But how does it fit into your managed perspective, right? And so the point is, we don't know what we don't know. Be open-minded to developing out a manager's perspective, especially all you top producers. Stop saying, well, I already know. No, when Michael Gerber, the small business guru, is talking about mega producers saying they don't know what they don't know, that includes all of us. Every one of us. Don't ever stop trying to broaden your perspective. And that's why I'm saying you need a manager's perspective in the second point. And then that manager's brain begins to always refer back to the plan before decisions are made. The technician makes decisions impetuously, quickly, no good. Take a beat like I just did. In 20-minute podcast, I was able to give you real live examples of how I go and make those decisions and help you do the same. And ultimately, the manager loves to make adjustments based on real human feedback from the hero of the story, meaning the seller, the buyer, the agent gives feedback. And if the message is not resonating, something's not working, you make those small adjustments to the plan. All right, chunking up the key point. It's easy enough to understand that you must follow a plan to reach your goal, but it's critical that you learn what you don't know by always engaging that manager's perspective. All right. Remember, you can take immediate action and get started in the right or better direction if you're already in the business with our free video course over at freeagentgift.com. We also broadcast our live sales training calls. So if you want to see some of that tactical work as it relates to these managed plans, we are live on Facebook and YouTube every Friday at 1 o'clock ET. So to remember, turn on those page and channel notifications, and you won't miss any of the reminders when we go live. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss out on any insights. Each time I do this, I'm gleaning this from training top producers, and I'm doing this myself every day. I'm not one of these gurus that makes it up because I'm guessing. I do this, then teach this, okay? We'd also appreciate it if you would share our content with other entrepreneurial real estate agents just like you so they can get over there. We can give them some help as well. Sharing is caring. Remember that. Hey, and thanks for listening. Remember, nobody's coming for you. So go get to work on your business. See you in the next episode.